Council Speaker Adrienne Adams hopes to break the glass ceiling, becoming the first woman to live in Gracie Mansion, also the first woman of color. But you have had a very busy week,
yes,
especially after the mayor had his first deputy mayor, Randy Mastro, sign an executive order that would allow federal ICE agents to be based at Rikers Island. Your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction to that, of course, is to do what the council did yesterday, and that is to pass a resolution saying that the council now has the authority to take the mayoral administration to court and or the Trump administration to court for violating sanctuary law.
So do you think you have a shot?
I absolutely do. The law of 2014 clearly stated that ICE was not allowed to come back onto Rikers, to come to Rikers at all, and the mayoral administration has now opened the door widely for the Trump administration to do what they want to do. So I heard the first deputy mayor say, you know, trust me, but in essence he's saying trust Donald Trump. And how can we possibly do that? Donald Trump has violated constitutional rights. He has taken money away from New York City's bank accounts, and now we are supposed to trust the Trump administration to actually say what they think we want to believe with what they're going to do on Rikers Island, and I say no way.
So basically what you're saying is this was illegal to do this.
Correct. It was illegal. It broke the law of 2014. That law was enacted well before I ever became a council member or speaker, obviously, but it does violate the law.
So do you think that the mayor did this because of his relationship with Donald Trump? And how did you feel about the fact that he didn't do it himself, that he had Randy Mastro do it?
I thought it was very interesting and pretty convenient, wouldn't you say, that he now had to have his first deputy mayor sign off on an executive order, typically signed off by the mayor of the city of New York, so that it wouldn't look like quid pro quo or conflict of interest. But I think that we all see it for what it is. It is actually the mayor living up to his responsibility and cozying up to the Trump administration.
So there's another issue when it comes to Rikers, and that is whether or not it could actually close. By law, it's supposed to close in 2027. Right. That's 2 years away. Is there any possibility that the local prisons, the community prisons, will be ready in time?
The community prisons, again, just like the closure of Rikers, it's the law for those things to happen. And I just have to share with you, my mother was a correction officer, and she retired as a captain in corrections. So again, I always say I legislate the way that I live, and I live the way that I legislate. I would hear the stories that my mother would tell me about her life as an officer on Rikers Island. She wore that uniform so proudly, Marcia. And when I think about actually chairing that committee some years ago when it came to closing Rikers, I called my mom, who's dearly departed now, but I called her and said, Mom, what do you think about this? I'm about to chair a committee that is going to have the responsibility to close Rikers. And she said to me, they should have closed that place a long time ago.
Wow.
And that never left me. So now, as one in leadership and actually has the power to do something about it and to help do something about closing Rikers, I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that that happens.
Do you think it could make the deadline?
Well, according to Littman 2.0, we've got some things to do. Quite honestly, if we had a partner in collaboration these past few years to help us meet that goal, we would be a lot closer to actually doing that and making that date. I don't think it is reasonable to think that that date will be met, but we are certainly going to work to be as close as we can. So
as you run for mayor, you have announced a really unusual plan to have guaranteed income for homeless families and their children, 21,000. Tell me about that. You're the first person in this campaign to talk about that, and tell me why you think it's important.
Oh, it's so important. It's so powerful. It is a bold plan, but it's so practical, Marcia. It is a plan to end homelessness for pregnant women, for working families, families who have children under the age of 5, also for youth, and also for youth aging out of foster care. So what this plan is going to do is we are going to guarantee income for 4 years. The first 3 years are going to be financed through New York City. It's about $430 million will be financed through New York City, along with independent bonds, private bonds, and the last year is going to be financed by philanthropy. So when we take a look at the bigger goal, and that is the exorbitant costs of keeping people in homeless shelters, compared to this plan, there is no comparison. We will see a savings of over $1 billion, 1.3, and we've tested this. Over 63% of the folks in our test actually came out of shelter and went into permanent housing. That is the goal, and this is one of the boldest things that New York will ever see, particularly with me as mayor.
So what you're really saying is that they take $430 million from the city budget, which really isn't a lot when you take a look at the fact that it's a $112 or so billion-dollar budget. That it's a good investment.
Yes, it absolutely is. We're talking around the issue of homelessness, but we're not talking about prevention of homelessness, particularly when it comes to families. 1 in 8 children is born into homelessness, into the shelter system. We can prevent that. We have to have the will to do it, and I certainly do. As a wife, a mother, a grandmother, I certainly have the will to do that.
So I need to talk to you about the city budget since we've opened up the Pandora's box. We have a problem with what's been happening in Washington. Number one, there's been a concerted effort on the part of the Trump administration to claw back funds from the city for a variety of programs. And secondly, the tariffs are wreaking havoc with the financial industry, which is a key cornerstone of our budget. So can you talk to me about what you think can happen and what steps you could take as a city council to prevent the city from going into any kind of a bankruptcy because of the loss of this money?
Yeah, the tariffs are very concerning. I mean, we just had a mayor tell us that he didn't understand the tariffs. I'm pretty clear about the tariff, what they are and what they will do. They stand to lose upwards of 260,000 jobs if they are enacted, if they come to fruition. This will devastate New York City, potentially put us into a recession. What the City Council does and has always done, I'm the only candidate in this race that has seen us through negotiation of 3 successful city budgets, now working on my 4th. What the council has always done, what we are going to do is protect New Yorkers. We had a mayor that wanted to cut and devastate New Yorkers. City Council had to come in and restore a whole lot of funding that he wanted to take away that were harming New Yorkers, children, libraries, cultural institutions. What we are doing now is we are protecting in reserve of finances. City Council has always been the voice on the other side of City Hall to maintain that fiscal responsibility. We're going to do that again very successfully. We're going to hold in reserves and try our best to Trump-proof New York City.
So do you think it's going to affect, I know that the council at one point thought that there was an extra $5 or $6 billion that could be spent. But now, given what's happened in Washington, are you having second thoughts about allocating that money because you may need it to deal with, cuts from, from Wall Street, cuts from the financial services industry, and money that's going to be clawed back from Washington?
Yeah, and what you say is such a good point. In spite of the fact that we do have a lot of trepidation and chaos coming from the Trump administration, regardless who the next mayor is, New York City is going to continue to have that target on our back. But now is not the time to give up on protecting New Yorkers who need us so much financially. So along with being those fiscal responsibility entity that the council has always been under my leadership, we're going to continue to protect New Yorkers from the devastation of the Trump administration.
So we have about 30 seconds left. Will it curtail some of the things you want to spend money on?
We're going to actually take a really hard look at it. It's going to change and adjust. As far as curtail, perhaps there will need to be adjustments made. But again, we are the ones that have always maintained sense and sensibility when it comes to fiscal responsibility for the people of the city of New York. That is not going to change now.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversations continue right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We are back with Council Speaker Adrienne Adams. So one of the things I want to talk to you about was the tragic accident, the helicopter accident over the past week, in which 6 people died.
Yes.
I know that the council over the years has considered a number of pieces of legislation to crack down on the helicopter industry. Where does this stand, and what are you looking at to do in the wake of that tragic accident?
Yeah, what a tragedy. My heart breaks for the whole family. I can't imagine losing an entire family. So
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Sincerest condolences to the family members. Like you said, there has been legislation over the years that deals with, noise and helicopters and the tourism helicopters, which we saw over this past week, take a whole family. I watched Borough President Mark Levine interviewed yesterday, and who was a member of the City Council, by the way. We served together. And he mentioned also, we're going to have some serious conversations around this, because I would hate to see another tragedy happen like this. These tragedies are preventable. We've heard a lot of voices in the past, and I think that it's time that we bring those conversations back up to the forefront.
So do you think there should be more checks and balances on these tourism helicopter companies? I mean, could it be required safety checks? Could it be require equipment checks? I mean, most of them fly out of city-owned facilities, so you do have some say as to what happens.
Yeah.
So is there a list of things that you could look at?
I absolutely believe there is. And what you just said, those safety checks are so important. I'm a former flight attendant, believe it or not. So yes, I am, and I can still save your life. But this, when it comes to helicopter safety and really safety aboard any aircraft, we have to make sure, number one, that the aircraft is flight worthy. And I'm not sure that those checks and balances are being done. Whether or not there are the proficient safety checks that are being done, we're going to have to take a look at that, along with a lot of other things as well. How long, has the company been operating? Who are the pilots going up as well? So there are a series of things that we're going to have to take a look at.
So as you, run your campaign for mayor, I wonder what your reaction was when Eric Adams said he was going to run as an independent, but he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He says he's a Democrat running on the independent line. Do you buy that?
No, there's no such thing. There really is no such thing. Either you're a Democrat or you're an independent, you're a Republican, or anything else that you want to be. That was really the worst kept secret, I think, in all of New York in a lot of circles. So it was expected that the mayor was going to come out as an independent. I believe that he had to do that in order to protect himself and save himself because of the scandal that was around him and surrounding him. And quite frankly, as an incumbent, his polling numbers have been so low, I don't think he had any other chance.
Do you think he has some believability, I guess, because as an incumbent mayor, he does have the bully pulpit, and he's going to be able to use his mayoralty to get some attention as we go towards the primary and the general election?
Well, absolutely. Eric Adams is still the face of New York City as its mayor. So I would expect him to do exactly what he is doing, that is getting out there, getting into the public spaces and making sure that people still recognize him as the mayor. He has made several announcements over the past few weeks, and I would expect him to do no less.
So he also is going to have to deal with a budget crisis caused by what's happening in Washington. What do you want to see him do? Because he's going to have to take the first step of what he proposes to the city council. What are you looking for him to do to take ownership of the problems coming from Washington?
Well, let's just say I've been looking for it for a very long time now, and I don't see it happening anytime soon. When we take a look at the money, the $80 million that was already taken out of, the city's accounts, I have not heard the mayor speak up against that, although there has been a little bit of pushback behind the scenes. But there is so much more that this administration has been doing to antagonize and harm New York City and New Yorkers, quite frankly. And I haven't seen the mayor step up and say a whole lot about the harm that this administration is causing New Yorkers in this very time frame.
But is he also going to have to propose a budget that takes into account the reality of what could be a depleted Wall Street? I mean, you know how much revenue New York gets from Wall Street and the financial services industry. Is he going to have to scale back what he's looking for because of the concern about both the tariffs and the clawbacks, which show no time of abating?
It is definitely going to be an interesting way that this needle is threaded when it comes to the budget that we annually negotiate, and now we have to add in the Trump factor. So I agree with your point, and I think that the mayor is going to have to take another look at the way that we negotiate this budget. I am, though, and will always be very optimistic about the way that we handle this budget for the interest of New Yorkers.
Well, the council has a number of budget teams that really pour through the budget to try to make sure that you deliver for
great
the people.
Teams.
So do you have priorities that you want to, protect?
There are always priorities to protect, especially since we have a history of having to protect against budget cuts that the mayor has enacted very harmfully. So there will always be those priorities, and we can look at education, particularly early childhood education, which has been a target. Again, our libraries, which has always been a target. Our parks has always been a target. Other areas, our seniors, some don't like to be called seniors anymore, older adults, have also been a target. I'm right there with you. Have been targets as well. So we are going to have to make sure that we are still maintaining the health for all of those things as a council. We have to put those things forward and prioritize those things on our own.
So what was your reaction when the mayor announced his new NYPD quality of life teams to go after what they're calling low-level offenses that annoy New Yorkers?
It was interesting. Not that I believe that the NYPD is necessarily the organization to handle quote-unquote quality of life issues. Quality of life issues is the paramount interest of all New Yorkers. What is it going to take, and how are we going to be helped to maintain and acquire a great quality of life that we all deserve? It should be looked at in a much broader brush. In my community in Southeast Queens, we look at a lot of things. We look at noise, coming from cars, backfires. We look at illegal dumping and sanitation issues. We look at the quality of life that our older adults need when they're going to and fro. There is a really broad range when it comes to quality of life issues, so I don't necessarily agree that we need to pinhole or pigeonhole the NYPD into micromanaging communities when it comes to quality of life.
Do you think that if the NYPD does it, that communities of color will be unfairly targeted?
Communities of color are always unfairly targeted, and this will be no different.
So when we're talking about the NYPD, they're at the lowest level that they've been in a very, very long time. People are leaving it in droves, and which is driving up overtime costs, which I know is a huge concern of the city council. So if you were mayor, what could you do about it?
There are several ways to look at this, and it is, number one for me is addressing the attrition rate and addressing the vacancy rate. Between uniform and non-uniform NYPD, we've got about 2,400 vacancies. We need to fill those. That's a lot, right? Those vacancies should be filled. They should be looked at in a more active way in filling those vacancies. We also have NYPD officers that are doing roles that they had no intention of doing when they were brought onto the force, when they were brought into the job. NYPD officers should not be social workers. They should not be mental health experts. They should not be, be doing those things that they were not trained to do when they came onto the force. NYPD officers want to do the things that we need for them to do. They are our bravest. We respect them and we need them. We need for them to stay. We want them to do the thing that we need them to do, and that is to prevent crime before it ever starts. So we need to get them out of the business of being social workers and mental health experts. We also, Marcia, need to pay them what they are worth. They're leaving. A lot of them are young. They're leaving after 2 and 3 years because they're not making any money. Hello? We need to pay these officers what they are worth because they are so very valuable. They are our treasures, and we need them to stay.
So you're running for mayor. I'd like you to tell our viewers and New Yorkers why Adrienne Adams is the one to move into Gracie Mansion.
Thank you for that question. So look, I'm running for mayor, to be the first woman mayor, to be the leader of this city of New York, to move from one side of City Hall to the other side. Look, Marcia, I don't need a manual. I don't need a diagram. I don't need a transcript. I've been leading this city for almost 4 years, led this city as no other candidate in this race has, 3 consecutive successful city budgets, now on our 4th, which will also be successful, by the way, in spite of Donald Trump and anything else that he has to bring to New York. I've been doing this work in leadership as far as legislation. You know that we've got a women majority. We've legislated very differently. We've brought items that have been in the back burner to the front burner. We've taken care of women's issues, children's issues, working families issues, diversity issues, all those things that have been in the back burner to benefit what New York is and what we will always be. We've got to maintain it. I am the leader that will do that work, the leader that's already been doing that work. And all I have to say, wife, mother, grandmother, give it to the woman, and we're going to get things done. Just move me over into that side of City Hall. Let's do this thing the way that we need to do it.
Adrienne Adams, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Marsha.
And thank you, Helen, for joining us as well.